What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's Top 3. Today we're going to be taking a look at 3 of the latest and greatest decks made for magicians. But before we jump into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And hit the bell.
And while we're at it, let's take a quick word from this week's sponsor. One of our favorite decks of 2020, the Wonder playing cards feature beautiful 3D back designs and an amazing tuck printed by Clove Street Press. Check out the latest version, Scarlet, live now on Kickstarter. So Steve, I gotta say, man, I am so excited for this. It's always fun to put some new Magicians decks head to head, and I think Magicians decks is such a broad category. It's always interesting to see what people consider a Magician's deck. You know, you have so many traditionalists who will go with a Arco deck, a Tally-Ho deck, a Bicycle Rider back deck. But then you have some great magicians out there and some really big magic enthusiasts out there who are always looking for ways to step up their playing card game.
Yeah, I'm excited for this week. Some of my favorites.
Dude, without a doubt, definitely some of my favorites in this mix as well. So, coming in at number 3 this week, we have the Krib playing cards. This deck is printed by USPCC on their premium crushed stock, is part of a 2,500 deck print run, and retails for $18.95. And one really cool aspect about this deck is it's actually a marked deck as well.
Nice.
Let's check this thing out. So I know off the bat, Steve, you're not a huge fan of the red on this, but diving into it, you can see this is the Dalia Magician Edition. There are plans for the Krib playing cards to put out more decks in this series, and you can see that Dalia pattern on the front and the back there. Really kind of simple geometric flower look to it, which is really cool and fun. Then you also have a King of Hearts and a Count 17 reveal on the inner tuck flaps, which goes to show really utilizing all of the space on this deck for as much magical capability as possible. And then you can see that 4 diamond flip there as well, which is that 17th card in the deck. So if you were to open this up fresh, show that Count 17, you'd be able to run with a nice little performance right there out of the box. One of the cool things about this as well is you have the entire deck has the 1 pip on every single card replaced with the back pattern, but color changed for the black or the red suits. You also have 1 of 2 jokers and a duplicate 4 diamonds in the front. And then these really interesting, semi-standard, but kind of semi-customized court cards here. All of them say Dalia Edition with that central Dalia element. And then they're kind of like black-toned, like monochromatic there, which is really cool. There's that upside-down 4 of diamonds that we saw that comes flipped from the factory,
Nice.
Which, you know, I always get a kick out of that. And I'm sure people always wonder, like, how do you go about flipping the card in the print run? And all you do is you basically put it upside down in the AI files. For when they print it, they print the back design up and the face design down, which is pretty easy. There's no manual flipping or anything crazy like that.
They go through 2,500 decks.
Could you imagine, man? That would be a long time working there. But the one thing I really do love about this is even though it is a pretty simple deck, they actually seem to have upped the pip size across all of the number cards. They're just slightly bigger. They've got a little bit more of a visual look to them. They really pop a lot more. You also have this ad card in the back and then that other duplicate joker there. This deck really is not only simple but fun and actually has a really great design to it. I didn't riffle through to show the marking system in this, but it is a fully marked deck for suit and for card. There's also, as you can see, it springs really nicely. Being a USPCC premium crushed deck, this thing actually feels spectacular. Actually, at first, when we first saw this on Kickstarter, I wasn't sure how I felt about the pattern. It seemed very simple. The more I've played with this and the more I've looked at it, I actually love that simplicity because it makes it not stand out, which is what you want using a deck for Magic. You know, you want something that's going to give you all of the tools you need to perform as best as possible, whether it be a marking system, you know, hidden reveals in the deck, whatever it may be. But you want it to be as innocuous as possible, and this really doesn't stand out, which is great about it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it, actually. Same thing as you. When I started on Kickstarter, I wasn't too keen on it, you know, but seeing it is really nice. I would definitely rock it if it was maybe blue.
Yeah, I'd actually like to see a black version come out next. I think that would be a.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it's not going to be the Black Dahlia edition, but
That'd be cool though.
it would be a nice little. You'd have to sneak like some murder weapons in there just to give it a little thematic theme to it. But yeah, I think it would be really cool to see some other colorways in this, especially to stretch it out for people who like maybe greens or pinks or off-the-cuff colors. I'm also really excited, though, to see, after the success of this deck, what else they have planned for the Krib playing card line.
Yeah, I agree.
So, dude, ready for number 2?
Let's hear it.
I'm going to tell you, number 2, we'll preface it here, would in any other week be a number 1 to me. No question about it. This is one of my favorite decks, favorite designers, favorite magicians, and favorite series of all time. Hands down.
I agree.
So
I highly agree.
Dude, it almost feels weird to put it in second. But
yeah,
with that in mind, we do have a banger for number 1, so you're going to want to stick around to find out what that is. So, coming in number 2 this week, we have the Butterfly Playing Cards Summer Edition. And now, for anyone who's familiar with this is the second edition in the colored-in back designs of what originally was the FU edition. Now, I absolutely love the way they've gone about really making these colorful for the season. This summer Butterfly deck was great. Part of a 1,000 deck print run, printed by Cardimundi on their B9 Slimline stock. It retailed for €19.95, which comes out to about $23-24 there. But absolutely great feeling deck. Sold out in minutes as well, which is no surprise because Andre really put some great marketing and some great thought into his decks. So let's check this thing out, man.
I love it.
Dude, absolutely. So this really follows the theme of the previous deck, the Spring Edition. You have a very nice matte kind of textured black tuck, which is a little bit thicker than the normal tuck there. And the one difference between the Spring Edition you'll see is the colors around that outer band and then used on the inside tuck flaps and that lip there. The other interesting thing about this being a Cardimundi deck is it actually didn't come with the interior cellophane on it because Andre is always...
I noticed that too.
He's always very conscious about saving plastic where he can. But like I said, this is obviously the same back design of the Spring and the FU edition. It is a recolor, but it is a heck of a vibrant recolor, bringing that amazing spring feel throughout the deck. This being a Magic deck is pretty much a standard deck across the board on the indices, pips, and number cards. The one thing you do see is an interesting kind of summery recolor with those oranges and reds for all of the court cards. And then, as always, man, these larger than normal central pips on all of the aces, bringing the pattern of the back design in different colorways to the red and the black suit aces. The one thing I would always love to see in this deck is if just randomly 1 or 2 cards throughout had the pip, one of the pips replaced on them. So if like the 2 of diamonds had a different back design pip on it as well. It looks beautiful on the aces, and I think it could only look more beautiful on the number cards as well.
Yeah, Stefan kills it. I love his design.
Yeah, his design is absolutely timeless. And then Teresa doing the coloring on this really has picked some vibrant, beautiful colors. Honestly, Andre, if anything, other than being a great magician, is really just great at putting together creative teams. I mean, he has created an amazing team here to do some beautiful work. You have these, non-matching jokers here, one showing the back design, one showing the solid yellow butterfly. You have a double backer and then a blank face card as well. So really built for Magic in mind. This also had a little bit of a terrible fan there in comparison to the first one, but being B9 Slimline, it fanned absolutely perfectly. Felt great in hand. Really handled really well. And I gotta say, for me, B9 Slimline is my stock of choice. No questions asked.
I totally agree. And I love the feel of that tuck box.
Yeah.
The tuck box that they use for the spring and then this edition, the summer, is so cool.
It's got a little bit thicker paper stock to it, which makes it feel sturdier. It's really built to be an everyday carry. Obviously not on the price point side, but on the reliability and durability side. You could throw that in your pocket and take it out 1,000 times, and it's still going to be as strong and as minimal wear as possible for a tuck box, which I really do like about it. And I think that's one of the things that Andre also does well with this, is putting together the idea of what is needed for a deck that is going to be used and abused, hopefully.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Steve, I know I'm ready for this one. Are you ready for this one?
I am always ready, dude.
Why don't you tell us what's coming in at number 1 this week, man?
Number one is one of my favorite designers.
Nice.
It is the Harmony back by Arcadia Playing Cards. It is a print run of 2,500. There's two editions. There's a green and a red, both 2,500, and both printed on USPCC premium crush stock, and they retail for $12.
Nice, man. Let's check this thing out.
I definitely opened the green because, as you know, I'm not a huge fan of red. As you can see, it does have that red seal, which contrasts really nice with the green.
Yeah.
Definitely a little Christmas vibe going.
I gotta say, the one thing that stands out to me, too, about this tuck, just looking at it when it first shows up on the video, it reminds me of a Matchbox. I love that styling.
I love the sideways tuck, and it's definitely not something you see all the time. You know, actually, you never see it, so it's really cool. That back design is definitely beautiful. It gives you a real vintage vibe to it. Definitely old school type back design. Handles beautifully, being USPCC crushed stock. Christian always does really thin borders, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah.
You know, it allows that color from the back to peek through when you fan it. Here's your two matching jokers of a woman playing the harp.
I love that whole style throughout this, that harmony harp vibe to it. It just looks good. Look
how big that ace of spades is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, he uses his pip package, which he calls it. It's the Arcadia pip package, which is the nice fatty pips, but he totally redesigned all these court cards, and they really remind me of kind of Arco-ish.
Yeah, they have a little bit of an Arco vibe with this whole different look to them as well. They almost remind me of like Renaissance paintings or something, like very portrait-esque.
Yeah, no, I mean, Christian does a great job kind of pulling that feel into these. You know, they kind of have, I mean, Renaissance is a perfect word. They kind of have skewed faces in a way,
yeah.
You know, but I really like it. You know, colors are beautiful. I love that gray. They're not standard colors that you would see on a standard rider back, you know, the blues and yellows and stuff. But, you know, even the indices are kind of a different font too. And you get a double backer there with red and green. And then you have a little information card.
Nice. Now, very nice. Very good use case for magicians there. Obviously, like you mentioned, red one is marked, so maybe more applicable for some magicians depending on what you're looking for. But that color change double backer, great look to it. And honestly, this PCC Crush stock is hard to beat. Again, I think there's a lot of good stocks that are coming up on them soon, but still number 2 in my book for sure.
Yeah, and I love that sideways tuck. Normally, the side tongue kind of goes over the top, but they used the traditional tuck box and still went with the sideways printing, and I loved how he did that.
Dude, I think it was a smart move because it really sits better with the deck in that way because you still get the Matchbox feel, but then it also opens like a Matchbox out the top still instead of from the top. The top tuck, when you do it that way, as much as it looks nice in some scenarios, a lot of times you either have a longer tuck to it to make sure that it stays in because it's wider, or it cuts too much into the design sometimes.
Yeah, and it's just not as easy to get in and out.
Yeah, no, I really like the way he did this. You know, I love Christian's work. I think he does a phenomenal job. I would have liked to see the red art version in here just to get yourself out of the comfort zone there. But I have to say, I think really Christian did a phenomenal job with this.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And as always, everyone's favorite part of the video this week, today's shout out goes to Popcorn Player 28. Check out his comment right down below. Congratulations on being this week's featured comment. And for everyone else watching, make sure to drop a comment down below. You may just end up being next week's featured comment. We appreciate all of you tuning in this week for this week's top 3. Make sure to like the video, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next week.
Peace.